based in Milan, Italy. I've been working as a coach now for 22 years, which is quite scaring because time flies very quickly. And I work as an executive coach, so I do individual coaching with executives and team development with senior teams. I'm also a professional counselor, and actually, one of my passion is really to transfer into the coaching context practices and methodology that I've learned in the therapeutical context. And this is exactly a case for that. So today, I'm going to introduce to you this framework, which is called IFS, which stands for Internal Family System, which is a methodology created by Richard Schwartz in the late 90s, which is growing in popularity recently everywhere. This is not me 20 years ago, by the way, the one on the picture. So the key takeaways for this webinar will be, first of all, I will propose you a different way of looking at ourselves and at our inner world. Then I will give you an overview of the IFS model in a very simple way. And then we will see how we can cultivate the path to self-leadership. Self-leadership is it's not a new concept in a sense, because we have always been talking about the fact that you need to lead yourself to lead others. But really, with these methodologies that we have available nowadays, we as coaches, we can be much more effective in supporting our clients to really nourish and support the growth of their self-leadership, of being able of mastering their own life. So what is leadership? Let's start from the beginning. And by the way, do you know this model? Please say yes.
Yes.
We all know at CCL this DAC model, which is about direction, alignment, and commitment. And the important point to start, the reason why I start from this model is because we normally use this model to look at the outside, to see how we interact with other people. And the point is that today we will start from this model to look inside at our inner system. So how can we be a leader of ourselves, of our inner team, of our inner world, by using, let's say, the same labels, the same criteria. So the systemic approach normally is referring to the outside world. So we are thinking about individuals who have to do with other individuals, who are working in teams, who are running organizations, who are part of communities. And this is normally the general focus. So when we talk about systems, we generally focus on the relationships among people. And what I'm going to propose you today is to look inside at the individual. And we can see that an individual is in itself a very complex system. It's made of sensations, feelings, thoughts, memories, parts, beliefs, values, you name it. And the point is that we are normally strongly conditioned to think of ourselves as a unique entity. And this is due to the fact that we have one body. So we think that I'm one, I'm different from you, I'm Francesco, I'm different from Alexander, I'm separated from Olga, and so on. But the point is that what I want to propose you is really a different perspective. So to get more in detail, so we have this illusion of being a single entity. And I have a question for you. from this perspective, when we are a single entity, what are the implications when we have a problem? So imagine the fact that there is a part of me who's saying, let's say that there is inside of me a thought or an energy which says, I want to give a compelling presentation. And then another part which is saying, you're not good enough. Maybe you're not competent enough, or you're not charming enough, or you're not fluent enough. So in general, when we have something that doesn't work within us and we are a single entity, what is the first reaction? How do we feel? What about the I that we are talking about? I feel confused. I feel that there is something wrong in me, something that doesn't work. So the idea, if I think as myself, as a single entity, and there is something which doesn't work, basically I'm wrong. This is the conclusion. And so I propose the first key idea that I would like to propose you is that we are a multiplicity of parts. So what does it mean to be a multiplicity of parts? It means that, for example, given the same issue, so I want to give a compelling presentation, and there is a part of me which is very critical. So, but it's still, I can look at them. They're out there, and I can see that there is a part of me which is striving, which want really to give a good impression, and another part of which is very critical. So what is the difference between the second situation and the former situation? Basically, if I know that I have a part that wants to go in a certain direction and another one who doesn't agree, I can look at them. I can say, okay, normally I'm okay. I just have two parts inside which have different, which are polarized, which are in conflict, and which want to, and which are expressing different and conflicting behaviors, which is very different from being wrong. Okay, so this is the first step. Then to a metaphor to let's say describe our inner system is that we have an orchestra of players, an orchestra of different parts, and we are the conductor. So we want to lead our inner orchestra so that we can make beautiful music. And if there are musicians, if there are players who are not following our lead, which are not doing what we tell us to do, what we tell them to do, then we have a problem. Then we have conflicts, and there are very naughty players who not only fight among each other, but they jump on the podium and they kick us out momentarily, maybe for some minutes, maybe for more longer time. But basically, the point is that they take control of our own life, of our own music. And we normally, in the coaching world, we normally call these parts the one who are creating the automatic pilot. So basically, if we look at ourselves as an orchestra, we have parts which are obedient, which are doing what we ask them to do, and parts which are extreme and are doing what they want. And these extreme parts, they can create conflict, or they can take control and jump on the podium. So this is the metaphor that we use. And self, basically, which is us, our presence, our conscious presence, directs players, but cannot play any instrument. So we need to rely on our players. We cannot kick them out. So who has heard or who is using the word saboteur? Maybe some of you have heard of that, or you're using this word of saboteur. Okay, so I challenge you and I invite you to take away this word from your coaching vocabulary, and now explain you why. Because the players we have are the players we have. If there are players who are not obedient, We don't have to kick them out. We don't have to fight them, because if we fight them, we create a stronger tension, a stronger conflict. Our goal in the systemic perspective, which is based on inclusion and ecology, we want to transform the parts who are not obedient. We want to transform the behavior of the parts which are not functional to the music we want to play nowadays. And this is a very different. So there are no bad parts in a sense. And I give you a practical example. Imagine that that actually it's a real case from a real client. This guy came to coaching, saying, "Oh, I mean, he was already a successful guy with a director role in a company, but he was aiming higher. So he wanted to have a leadership role in a few years. He did an MBA. He's really ambitious. And he told me, oh, I have a saboteur and who is holding me back, who's slowing down all my progress. And I want to do something to get rid of that. Okay. So making a long story short, at the end of the day, what came out is that it is true that there was a part of him who was very ambitious, who wanted to get to a leadership role. And the so-called saboteur who was holding him back, we found out that it was nothing else than a part of him who wanted to be a good father and wanted to spend quality time with his kids. So the solution was not to kick out this so-called saboteur, but to find a good way to occasionally give as much energy as possible to this ambitious part, and occasionally give as much total energy as possible to the father part who wanted to have a place in the family, who wanted to take care of his kids. So this is I think it's a good example of what I mean when I say that there are no bad parts. There are parts which are misbehaving. And our role as a coach is to help our clients to reframe, let's say, and change the role of these parts. So we said that there are connected members which are obedient and they do what they want, and extreme members. So I gave you the example of of two extreme parts, extreme members who wanted badly very different things. So the key idea number 2 is that we need to develop self-leadership to be in a good position, to be in a good state ourselves, and in order to have a positive impact on the outside. So basically, self-leadership means to grow and develop self-leadership. It means to be the master of our own life in order to achieve what we want to achieve. And basically, we need to cultivate presence, and we need to harmonize our inner parts, so our inner orchestra, so that they can play well together and they can play according to the score that we show them, that we according to which we lead them. And so we need to focus on to take care of the inner world, of the inner system, and then we will also, our relationships and our impact on the outside world will improve. And basically the idea is that if we are more present and if there is more harmony inside, we will be more responding to situation rather than reacting. So this is, let's say, the IFS model explained in very simple ways. So basically we have the self, which is the conductor, the orchestra conductor, which can access a number of connected parts. These are the parts, for example, that I tell them, please drive the car, and they know how to do it. Please cook a meal, and they know how to do it. Please make a business plan, and they know how to do it. And we call this part resources in coaching language, let's say. And these parts, as we said, are managed by self. So are managed by our consciousness, by our awareness. And these resources can be further developed. So I can have I can have a talent or a skill that is very important to me. I can do more with it, or I can expand the use of it, or I can utilize a certain resource in other dimensions of life where I don't use it. So I can be very playful with friends when I'm out in my spare time, but maybe if I don't do that, I can use this playful and humor parts that in my work life as well. And this is a classic that we meet as coaches, that sometimes people, we find that they can be very playful or even light, and then sometimes at work they're very serious because they change hat and they forget about some other good parts of them. So then we have extreme parts, which are the parts that are overrunning self, the parts which are taking over. And these parts, they create all kind of trouble. So they create obstacles, compensations. So they scrolling on video scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, or food issues, or craving for chocolate, or whatever, or extreme emotions and any other things. But everything can be boiled down actually to the autopilot and inner conflicts. All these kind of issues can be related to two parts who are polarized one against each other. So in a personal development journey, what we want to do is to move down this bar. So to have as many parts as possible which are managed by self, which are under I mean, I don't like to use the word control, but bear with me, under the reach of self, of the will and the awareness of self. And so the purpose, and the more we develop ourselves, the more we reduce the number and the impact of extreme parts in our life. This is about what happens if we have no more extreme parts and only connected parts. What kind of person do we become? Any idea? Can you imagine? Actually, imagine that you have no autopilot, that you're perfectly present, and you do and you can use your resources as you want. This is what we call the Buddha, in a sense. So that's the path. The point is that on one side, we don't push them back. So we have to accept the fact that we have, for example, going back to the point of to the example I was making before. We have to accept the fact that I may want to give a compelling presentation, and I may have an inner judge who's kind of creating trouble and creating doubts about my performance. Okay? Then the point, I need to accept the fact that there is an inner judge. Yes. And I can work with this inner judge because every part of us has a positive intention. So the point is that if I understand why the inner judge is putting me down, generally judges are aiming at protecting us. So not exposing ourselves to criticism, to outside judgments, etc. So the point is that we have to accept and work on that so that we can reframe and change their role. So can you imagine if, going back to the presentation example, I want a part that want to give a compelling presentation that can relax and say, okay, a good presentation, good enough, a good presentation is enough, even if it's not compelling. And the judge that, instead of being so hypercritical, can become an inner consultant. So a constructive critic. And can you imagine if these two parts can work well together instead of fighting each other? Wow. So the point is to acceptance and transformation and changing roles. These are the two things that we want to do with our extreme parts. And another thing, for example, when we talk about compensations, let's think about it, one thing. If I come back after a long day of work, or if I want to celebrate something and I want to drink a good glass of Sauvignon Blanc, wow, that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong if there is a part of us which enjoys Sauvignon Blanc. It is a problem if when I come back from home, when I come back home after a long day of work, I drink a whole bottle by myself. That's a different topic. So we need to, so the acceptance, accepting who we are, but at the same time, finding a way to live our part, to experience and to express our parts in a way which is constructive and ecological for our own life. Okay, good. So, yes, and all parts has a positive intention. And this is a critical, and this is an additional important information. So we need to find out what is the good intention of this part. It's why this part is, why do I perceive this part as a saboteur? What is behind that? What is the positive intention? And the healing and the growth and the development starts from there. So how to develop self-leadership? Basically, we can do two things. The first one is cultivate the so-called, what we call in IFS, self-energy. What does it mean to cultivate self-energy? It means to cultivate presence, compassion, curiosity, wisdom, playfulness, lovingness, you name it. All these good qualities. And we have as coaches many tools, and we can do meditation, we can sing, we can dance, we can be in nature, we can do gardening, we can do plenty of things to cultivate our self energy. And we generally also invite our client to do that. So let's always remember this way to connecting to this, to presence, to connecting to our core. And the other thing is about harmonizing parts, harmonizing inner parts. We do it by, making sure that parts will change their role and they will do what they are told to do. That they will stop taking over, but they will be included in a different way in our system, and that they will collaborate. So they, instead of fighting each other, they will support us in getting the best out of them. So this is what we do, and this is what we can do with this working with this model. And actually, by working with this systemic model, we want to promote the ecology of the system, and that's why there are no bad parts, there are no saboteurs. We want to look for ecological solutions for the entire system and not for just one part. If the guy want to become the CEO of the company and there is another part who want to be a good father, he has to find a solution which accommodate, which include both ways, both intentions, both aspirations. And especially only ecological solution will be long lasting and sustainable. Because otherwise, yes, we may have a win, we may obtain something on the short term, but on the long run, if we have a deep conflict inside and we don't sort it out, we will not go anywhere. So just to think of a few examples, I already gave you an example of what happens in the internal system. to have an ecological solution, so to have a person who is able to decide when it's time to dedicate 100% of my energy to work and when it's time to dedicate 100% of my energy to take care of my kids. That's the solution. It's not a compromise, but the solution is to get the self, the orchestra conductor, to choose when to use a part in the best possible ways and when to shift to the other one. The solution, it always implies that there is ourself who is in charge of our life, who is able to make decisions, who is able to make choices on which part has to be used in a certain moment, which orchestra player has to play in a certain moment. Then, if we look at the external system, we all work with teams, for example. And again, if you want to have a long-lasting, sustainable solution, the solution, if we have a conflict, it needs to involve all the team members. It cannot be only for one member. And the same for decision making. Consider about, a choice about a career move. I can stay where I am. I can move to another company where I will work like hell, but I have, a company maybe run by a private equity fund. I will work like hell for 4 years. I will need to lay off a lot of people, but I will earn a lot of money. Or another choice is to have a career move for a bigger job, but I have to change town and maybe change country, maybe not even so far away, to be from Milan to Paris or from Frankfurt to Copenhagen, but it's far away, enough far away to force myself to spend the whole week in that city instead of being at home. So the decision making, of course, we can explore all these different options, but at the end, we have also to consider what is a good options for our personal life. If we have a partner, family, or some kind of connections that are very dear to us, communities, whatever. So in decision-making process, we always have to consider the system where the context where the decision is taken. So we go back to the initial question, what is leadership? And our beloved DAC model. So basically, the point is that when we talk about alignment, looking at our inner world, we mean to create harmony, to create alignment among our inner parts so that they work well together and they follow our requests and they do what they are asked to do. When we have this, help us creating an authentic sense of purpose. The more authentic the sense of purpose, the more powerful it is to mobilize our energies and to mobilize everything, whatever it takes to achieve that purpose. And sometimes in coaching, we need to be a little bit curious when we work with clients about purpose. Because sometimes, for example, I know a guy called Francesco. If you would have had him as a client when he was 30, he would have told you, oh, by 35, I want to be an executive. Those days I was working in the corporate world. Okay. By 35, I want to be an executive. Fine. And then actually, Francesco managed to become an executive at the age of 34. So big deal. Wow. Was Francesco happy? Yeah, good money, recognition. Everybody around me were very happy. Friends, family, everybody was very happy. But actually at that age, I started doing therapy to understand what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do as a grown up. And it took me a few years to understand that finally, to be an executive was my mother's dream. I made my mother happy. So the conditioning, the cultural conditioning was so strong that I really I've been a striver. I've been really working like hell to achieve that goal. And actually, I also did a burnout before they invented the word burnout when I was around 32. But then I realized that there was something else, something more. Even and again, without there are no bad parts. So honoring the parts that made me go through that journey and that experience, because it has been a lot of learning, a lot of money, and very good experiences, which has been useful later when I started working as a coach in 2002. But that was not my authentic purpose. So maybe this is quite an extreme example, and it's true that if you would have met Francesco when he was 30, I would have fought for this goal purpose of being an executive, and I would have dismissed any challenge about that. But still, as coaches, we need to be curious about what is really behind the surface. And so the goal of self leadership is really to maximize the expression of our potential, because finding an authentic purpose is really where we can give all our passion, all our energies into it without holding back anything, without doubt. And so it's about improving performance, but it's also improving satisfaction and well-being. Again, we talked about Francesco in the old several years ago. Performance, yes, big time. Satisfaction, kind of. So there are some elements that we are always to keep in mind, which are well-being, personal satisfaction, and performance, not only performance. And in this way, we can have the best possible impact on the larger system. So that's about self-leadership. If you want to know more about this transformative approach that of IFS in coaching, you have, as I know, two options. One is the IFS Institute, which is launching for next September, the first a training for coaches on IFS, so how to use IFS in coaching. It's the first time, and I will be one of the trainer. So actually, Francesco you will find Francesco in both cases. So with the IFS Institute in the US and the Academy of Constellations is an institute I founded where I teach how to use IFS with constellation. So the difference is that in the let's say in the classic approach, you work as we did in the exercise beforehand. You work looking inside and looking at what you feel inside and sorting things out. For example, putting a part on your hand, etc. With constellations, we create a representation with parts so that our parts are externalized. And there are some advantages in doing that. And I mean, there are people who like more one approach or the other. They're both valid and they're both bringing to similar results. So this is what you can do. And if you have any question, I'm happy to answer to your questions.